And hi, everyone. Welcome to eBizChat, where it is all about business. And today we have with us Dr. Susan Nash, good friend, and what we call her the magical one. How you doing, Susan?
Well, thank you. The magical part kind of floored me because I'm not feeling too magical today. But
She's usually the magical one. Okay, today she's less charmed, less magical, but no. Anyway, and in studio we've got Harold Mugliati. He's our video producer. And back for, 100th visit this year, we've got Dr. Ed Stuart. Always a pleasure to have him on. He's our favorite economist. Here we go. This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation. Visit us at www.relatecasts.net. Thanks. And here we are, and we've got with us Dr. Ed Stuart in that center position of acquisition. No, forget the power. He's got acquisition power. How you doing today, Ed?
Great, Rick. Good to see you, and good to see Susan.
Yeah, it is good to see you. Well, yesterday I think they were talking about the feds were thinking of starting or putting their own cryptocurrency for the U.S. dollar. What do you think of that one?
That's kind of been an ongoing thing with not only the Fed but most central banks. In fact, there's an abbreviation. Let's see, CBCC, Central Bank Cryptocurrencies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And probably they'll research it. I'm still one of those people. In fact, the majority of the economics profession who doesn't see any need for any kind of cryptocurrency. I had a good friend in Salzburg. Harold is actually the information technology director for the city of Salzburg, and he said, "Well, Ed, don't you think we need a digital currency?" And I held up my phone that's connected to my Citibank account, and I said, "I have a digital currency. It's right here on my phone."
Yep.
So, yeah, I think it's one of those things that's past its time, and eventually will just kind of, like General MacArthur and old soldiers, will just fade away. So, I think Rick, you and I and Susan have been pretty, what shall we say, conservative about encouraging people to get into cryptocurrencies or anything like that. It's like one of those, it's like online gambling or, as I talked about last time, my grandmother's penny mining stocks. If you've got it, if you've got some money that you're perfectly happy to lose and never see again, then cryptocurrencies are a good thing. But I don't really think there will be a separate category of digital currencies created by central banks. I think probably what they're doing right now is more political than economic. Because there is a movement in the United States, especially, but other countries that think that cryptocurrencies are the wave of the future,
right?
And so they don't want to seem to be not participating in the future. But I think that the future of cryptocurrencies is rather bleak.
Well, I read
that
Go ahead, Susan.
But here's something to think about. Okay, so one of the things that we've been looking at recently is the kind of the extortion rackets with the different pipelines, things like that. So what blockchain does, which is basically what crypto have, is the ability to track everything and have a provenance and track where everything has been and also what's going on. And so potentially, I mean, I know that banks have been talking about using blockchain time just for security. So maybe this cryptocurrency is not actually a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, but it's more of a blockchain technology that they're implementing for dollars. I don't know.
Well, could be. Could be. I think, Susan, you're on a more realistic track than my 19-year-old male students, and they're all males and they're all 19, who think that Bitcoin is going to take over everything next week, right? And I don't think that's likely to happen. But you're probably right that some kind of digital platform for the dollar, the yen, the euro will be expanded. Maybe I don't know, but yeah, I think that's much more likely than Dogecoin or Bitcoin or Ethereum, or I can't keep up with the number of cryptocurrencies, which is one of the problems, because the argument for Bitcoin is that you can't create more of it just willy-nilly, but that doesn't say that you can't create more cryptocurrencies. In fact, they get created all the time, and there are hundreds of them out there. So that's another issue that hasn't been intellectually solved at all.
And here's one of the problems. A lot of people confuse blockchain with cryptocurrency.
Exactly.
One is the mechanism in which you can apply a cryptocurrency, but they're using blockchain and banks all over the place for what replaces letters of credit.
Yeah,
they're safer than a letter of credit and more secure, and that's people don't talk about stuff like that. So the common vernacular is, well, blockchain is cryptocoin or cryptocurrency. It isn't. And so I think we're going to see more blockchain technology because it makes sense. Now, Harold always brings up a good point, and that is, as soon as quantum computing becomes more commonplace, how are you going to keep cryptocurrency from being easily opened?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You won't. And by the way, guess who can do it? Guess who can do it right now? The FBI, Google. Google has quantum computers that can do it. I mean, so people don't talk about that either. Yeah.
These are the Russians.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not sure where the Russians are on quantum, but I think they've got their version of it too. So,
yes. Yeah.
You know, the cryptocurrencies of the world are in Chinese servers.
Oh, that's great too. Yeah, that's funny. At least we know they're well protected by someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it is
I think the other so-called appeal of cryptocurrencies is that, well, since they can't be created so quickly like fiat currencies, the U.S. dollar, and so forth, they're never going to lead to inflation. But obviously, their value goes up by 10,000 and down by 10,000 at a given time,
and quickly.
One of the things, and very quickly. So it's not a store of value. It's not a unit of account, and it's not obviously a means of exchange. The three functions of money that every freshman macro student has to memorize for exam number. I think it's 3 in my course. And the problem of most economies today, even today, is not inflation, but prices not going up fast enough. And even though the Fed has just revised its inflation forecast from 2% to 3% for the rest of 2021, I have the numbers. The Fed just issued a 3-year projection for their policy guidelines, and their personal consumption expenditures index, which is their preferred measure of inflation as opposed to the CPI. There are problems with every statistic. That's one of the things. Even my cholesterol statistic, right? There are good cholesterol and bad cholesterol and whatever. Anyway, the Fed's forecast for core PCE inflation, personal consumption expenditures, it's that the big part of GDP in the U.S., is 3% for this year, but for 2022 and 2023, it's 2.1%.
Interesting. How'd they come up with that one?
I think that's pretty realistic.
Okay.
And so
now there is something interesting, Ed. We have officially very low inflation, but if you look at the price of food, I think it's gone up about 40 to 50% this year already. It's gone up a lot.
Other foods have gone down, right?
Have they?
Yeah.
What food?
Yeah. Eggs have gone down, right?
Okay.
And some kinds of fruits and vegetables have gone up. Beef has gone up a little bit.
Milk went up a lot. Milk.
Bacon has gone up a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and cheese hasn't. Right. So some of the dairy products haven't had the inflationary spike that others have. But I think that's all supply chain, and that's all.
That's true. And one reason, and you bring up a good point, because one reason a lot of things have gone up is the cost of gas is really expensive right now for gasoline, car and diesel. The trucks are really spending a lot more to get somewhere than they did.
Right.
Which is that typical. It's sort of artificial because again, a lot of this oil was purchased when it was 15, 20, 30 cents a barrel, and now they're charging it up at like $100 a barrel price. So
yeah, and that will go down, soon, right?
I hope.
Well, I don't know though. Here's the another perspective.
Okay.
So
that's why we're here.
So we are seeing that oil and gas prices are going up as predicted last spring, as you might recall. However, the supply is going down, and as the world recovers from COVID, the demand is continuing to go up. Now, here's the big factor: a lot of ESG kind of imperatives and companies are basically saying there are certain types of energy that we just will not allow as part of our mix anymore. Coal, some types of oil and gas, shale, and so we're going to clean it up. So the bottom line, the way that we get electricity is going to be permanently more expensive, which will mean that you don't think it's going to be permanently more expensive. Okay,
until the next regime. Cheaper. And I think until the next regime, every regime is different.
Solar panels are more expensive.
The costs of renewable energies and solar and wind are continually going down, right? It's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
Well, there's some bottlenecks though right now in solar panels, for example. They're saying that that's a short-term thing, right? I'm telling anybody that will listen to me, get out of energy companies. Anybody that has anything to do with carbon, it's the loser, and those prices are going down already. Those share prices are going down, and sooner or later, petroleum prices will go down permanently as well. Maybe not now, maybe not next week, but within 1 year or 2 years, I think the sun is setting on the carbon industry.
When do you think?
Pun intended.
Now,
Susan, the critical minerals are in short supply.
Right.
Needed batteries, etc.
Yep. Now, Susan,
but those ingredients can be substituted, and there'll be new. It's the history of technology, right? We had when the Japanese took over the rubber plantations in Southeast Asia, Mr. Dow and Mr. DuPont said, "Oh, we can make tires out of something else." So.
Now, Susan, when do you think electric cars, for example, will really become the norm?
Well, I think that there are a couple of things that have to occur, and one is to have charging stations along the highways and more robust infrastructure. So I think that right now I'm seeing a lot of developments in geothermal and also solar and being stored in geothermal. And then placed along highways, like kind of like local sources, instead of having to ship like transit those electrons across cross-country lines, having them placed strategically along gas stations or along highways, and then they need to be able to charge more quickly.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see a lot of hybrid before we see 100%.
Yeah, that's the transition. And I was getting my little Honda, which is pure gasoline, wash yesterday, and the car coming through the car wash behind me was a hybrid Honda. And it was a boyfriend and girlfriend. The girlfriend had a hybrid Honda, and the guy was picking up his Tesla next week.
Wow. Okay.
So, and when I was home in Houston a couple of weeks ago, my sister forced me, nearly at gunpoint, to go to Rudy's to eat barbecue, which she was going to pay for. And in the parking lot at Rudy's, right off of the Southwest Freeway, were at least 10 Tesla charging stations.
Interesting.
So you could get your barbecue and your Tesla charged at Rudy's. Pretty good barbecue. I can't vouch for the electricity that comes out of the Tesla charger because we were in her gas-powered BMW. But I think that, I think it's coming faster than we might imagine.
Well, I like Rudy's. There's a Rudy's in Norman. I like to eat there, but they sell actually they sell food too, but they sell gasoline, unleaded without.
Rudy's in Sugar Land, Texas, just sells barbecue and electricity. Well, I don't think Rudy's sells the electricity, but I think Tesla probably pays them something to put their charging stations in their parking lot.
So, Ed, what happens to Texas, Oklahoma, California, Alaska, other places where there's a lot of oil? There's a lot of oil wells, and there's gasoline production and refineries. What happens to those states and others in the next decade?
Yeah, that's a big question. Although, having spent 5 years in graduate school in Oklahoma and learning how to play tennis in a 20 mile an hour to 40 mile an hour wind, there's part of the answer right there.
It's blowing in the wind.
It is blowing in the wind, yes. For my hometown of Houston, although it is the oil capital of the United States, there's probably 5 or 6 times more jobs in Houston that are related to healthcare.
Oh, interesting.
MD Anderson Cancer Hospital. I'm going to sound like a Houston patriot. MD Anderson Cancer Hospital is probably the best cancer hospital in the world. Texas Children's Hospital is the largest pediatric hospital in the world. One of the frequent guests on CNN to talk about COVID is Dr. Peter Hotez, who's the head of tropical diseases at the Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. So just as I always tell people that are asking me for investment advice, although I tell them if I really knew what was happening, I would not be driving a 4-cylinder Honda. I'd be in my Lamborghini or on my yacht in the Mediterranean. Pharmaceuticals, healthcare practice, healthcare technology is the wave of the future. Houston's a big technology center, information technology as well. So that's what's going to have to happen. In Oklahoma, it'll be an athletic powerhouse, right? The University of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State University, Tulsa. It's either the PGA. I think it's the PGA tournament next year is going to be in Tulsa at Southern Hills. So there are other things.
Yeah, there's a lot more though than oil and gas in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's doing pretty well. But the other thing too, we forget. There's always going to be a huge demand for plastics.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think those are going to come from petroleum, right, or coal. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I still think that polypropylene, polyethylene, low density, high density, all those things, and there are so many even different platforms for medicines that use petrochemicals that will basically become a specialty chemical.
Yeah, but see, that's another source of jobs. All of the research that's going to be necessary to get us out of petroleum and carbon-based resources, right? Now, the problem with that, Rick, is the people that are going to do those jobs have they have masters and PhDs and high-level skills. And the question is the U.S. educational system or the U.S. society producing enough people with high-level skills, or are we producing, or are there just people that don't have the necessary skills? So,
well, yeah, we're producing far less engineers than we used to, far less computer scientists, anything technical, chemists. We're not producing a heck of a lot of them. Very, very few. We're busy producing social justice warriors and basket weavers. We're not really producing tech people. We used to.
But then there are huge gaps. For example, any type of thing that has to do with processing of like rare earths or neodymium or things that are used for computer technology and also battery technology. So what happens is it gets, the few mines that are still open have to ship their ore to China, get it processed there, and ship it back. And all the major universities that teach people to do that type of chemistry or engineering are the best ones are in China.
Interesting.
I think there's probably some good ones in the U.S., right?
Not in that. I mean, well, at least that's according.
If there needs to be, I think the university system, the good university systems, the top state universities, places like Illinois and Wisconsin and Minnesota and Berkeley and UCLA, and private universities like MIT and Stanford and Harvard and Princeton. I think whatever the society needs can be produced. I think the COVID vaccine is Exhibit A, and if there's money and demand, then the best scientists in the world, which are all connected, will come up with what's needed, right? So
that's a really good point.
I'm pretty optimistic about what can be done. You know, my father used to beat into me, where there's a will, there's a way. I said, I can't do that. Oh, yes, you can, right? And most of the time he was right. Yeah. So typically, Rick, economists are optimistic folks, right? All you have to do is you ask any economist, right, left, center, okay, we need to solve this problem. How do we solve this problem? And every economist will probably give you some form of this answer. You have to set up the incentives. If you get the incentives right, then people will behave much as Adam Smith said they would behave. So, again, the COVID thing, you tell Pfizer, Moderna, BioNTech, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, there's hundreds of billions of dollars here in revenue and profits if you come up with this, and by George, they did. So I think
of course
the,
that is
the question
just to be a devil's advocate, though, that is a particularly strange case, because that was a lot of government collusion to give those companies a lot of money when solutions already existed to cure what was there without having to get a vaccine. And there's a lot of doctors out there who've been, quote, censored, shut up for even saying that. But it's true. You've got many, many remedies that worked without needing a vaccine, but pharma made no money on it. It's just a scary little thought.
Okay. I will disagree on that, right?
Okay.
I'm happy that I got the 2 shots of the BioNTech Pfizer vaccine. And the proof is in the pudding. Illinois opened full last Friday, January 11th. Our COVID rates are going down, and it's in large part because Illinois, and especially Chicago, has done a very good job with vaccination percentages, high levels of vaccination. One of the many problems that Russia has is that they haven't vaccinated very many people, and there's a new wave of COVID hitting Russia, especially Moscow, really hard right now. And the death rates in Russia are going up. Maybe not as high as India, but that's one of the of all of the problems that Russia has, and it has millions of problems. The COVID problems, especially in Moscow, are becoming very, very acute. In fact, while Putin hasn't come on board with mandatory vaccination or encouraging vaccinations, the mayor of Moscow is just this morning announced that nearly everyone that works in the city of Moscow, in the Moscow region, will have to be vaccinated or they lose their job. It's gotten that serious. So and especially the Delta version, which is what hit India the worst, is what's driving the vaccine outbreak in Russia right now. What were you going to say, Susan?
Oh, I was saying, well, I guess the Sputnik, and I don't know how effective it is, but like one thing that we're seeing is this concept of vaccine diplomacy, and China wanting to send stuff to like Brazil. But Brazil, they're still not. I mean, they're still having high numbers. Now, I don't know exactly what the distribution is, but the people I know who are in Brazil, I mean, they're kind of desperate because they I don't know. They're stuck. Argentina is another one where they're kind of stuck.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether I'm glad I got the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine. I'm glad my Russian tutor, her mother, who lives in Russia, got the Sputnik vaccine. She didn't want to get it, but she's a slightly older woman and was required by her neighborhood council or something like that. I would not like to have had the mandatory Sputnik vaccine, but it looks like it's probably better than nothing.
That's what they sent to Argentina. The Sputniks. That's all they've used.
Yeah.
Oh, really? They sent the Sinovacs. I know that Mexico has had a lot of the Sinovacs. So Well, so it's so interesting that the countries that are still just kind of staggering under the challenge of continuing lockdowns and economies being, like when they start coming back on board, well, do you think that's when the supply chains start opening up, or?
Yeah, it probably will. Right. What we're going through now is kind of there's a couple of analogies I use. What we're going through now is like the immediate after effects of the COVID vaccine. You have a little bit of fever, you have a little bit of discomfort. That's what the economy is going through because demand is going up. There was an interesting article in The Economist this week about why unemployment hasn't come down faster in the U.S. And it's something that I often talk about with my students about why the unemployment rate never goes to zero. And it's because in good economic times, this is the time you want to quit your job and look for another. So their quit rates in the United States, there are lots of people. I don't know whether he's from Oklahoma, but there was a country singer called Johnny Paycheck, right? And his only one hit was "Take This Job and Shove It," right? And that's what's going on right now. There are lots of Americans who are taking advantage of the tight labor market, or the tightening labor market, and saying, I can quit my job and go try to find another one because there are jobs open. And that's another thing that's going on, and which is to some extent preventing from supplies increasing because we haven't got everybody back to work, and lots of people are taking advantage of this situation to get out of jobs they didn't like and maybe find something that's a little bit better.
Yep.
People are diversified too. Yeah. And they're saying, okay, I mean, just for example, a lot of people are going to the new energy type of skills. And so they're taking this opportunity to like transition themselves.
Yeah. Well, with that, we are out of time, as that our music is telling us. Goes fast, 30 minutes.
Time flies when you're having fun, Rick.
It does. It does. We're covering a lot of ground also.
Yes.
So thank you all for being here today. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ed and Susan. And if you're watching the show, give us a thumbs up or down, whatever you think, or send us comments and let us know. Subscribe and let us know what you think. Or if you have any questions, put them down in the chat area. We'll see you folks next week on eBizChat. Thanks, everyone. You guys have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.